Do you believe in the word perfect? I used to believe. I used to believe that I was living in a perfect marriage and a perfect family without a single cloud in the sky. I had a husband any woman would desire, a mother-in-law more understanding than my own mother, an adorable and intelligent son, and a career I was proud of. The portrait of my family in everyone's eyes was beautiful, so radiant it seemed to have no blemishes whatsoever. But, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes what is too perfect hides the most terrible secrets. And I discovered that secret not through jealousy or arguments. I learned it from an innocent phrase from my son, barely 5 years old. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. A phrase that forever tore the velvet curtain of a fake happiness. That night, like so many other quiet nights in our suburban New York mansion, my husband James had gone to sleep early, saying he was a little tired. My mother-in-law Carol had also retired to her room. Only Noah, my son, and I remained, sitting together on the soft wool rug in the library. I was reading him a fairy tale about a prince and a princess. The atmosphere was incredibly warm and full of love. When the story ended, I closed the book, kissed his forehead, and told him, "Well, my little prince, it's time for bed. It's late now." Noah rubbed his eyes, yawned deeply, and suddenly lifted his head. His big, clear, round eyes looked at me, and he said with the purest innocence, "Mom, yesterday I saw Ms. Sophia give Dad a kiss just like you do." The word kiss in a child's language was unmistakable. My hand, which was stroking his hair, froze in the air. My ears were ringing. The room, until then serene, suddenly became suffocating and unbreathable. My son's phrase was like a lightning bolt that, without warning, struck my mind and left me stunned. I tried to force a smile, but I knew how crooked and forced it was. "What are you saying, my prince?" I tried to keep my voice from trembling. "I'm sure you saw it wrong. Miss Sophia is your tutor. Why would she kiss Daddy? I bet you dreamed it, right?" But Noah shook his head vigorously, his little mouth pouting with a very serious expression. "No, Mom, I really saw it. It was last night when you were at your meeting in your office. I went down to the kitchen for water, and I saw Miss Sophia and Dad there. She stood on her tiptoes and gave him a kiss, and then Dad gave her one too, just like in the cartoons." Every word from my son was clear and precise, without a trace of imagination. A 5-year-old child doesn't know how to lie about things like that. I felt as if someone was squeezing my heart. I couldn't breathe. I quickly hugged him. A very tight hug, partly to reassure him and partly to hide the breakdown that was happening inside me. "Oh, I'm sure it's because Miss Sophia really likes Dad. That's why she gave him a kiss on the cheek, honey, just like I give them to you. It's nothing, my boy. Come on, let's go to sleep." I picked him up in my arms and quickly carried him to his room. I tucked him in, sang him a lullaby, but my head was in chaos. The image of my husband and the young tutor, their furtive kiss in the kitchen, everything was spinning nonstop. A woman's intuition, a vague uneasiness that I had tried to ignore for a long time, resurfaced with overwhelming force. My perfect world had just suffered a crack, a very small crack, but enough to know that a silent storm was brewing beneath that beautiful facade. For you to understand why my son's phrase collapsed me in that way, let me tell you the story of my life, which was seemingly idyllic. My name is Eliza, I'm 35 years old, and I'm the founder and director of a fairly well-known fashion brand in the US. I wasn't born with a silver spoon. Everything I have today I built with my own hands, with sweat, tears, and many sleepless nights. Perhaps because I had been through so many difficulties, once I achieved success, I longed for something incredibly simple, a family home. And I thought I had found it when I met James. He was a talented and elegant marketing director, warm and attentive. What made me fall in love with him was that he wasn't intimidated by my success. He said he loved the person I was, my strength and my determination. He was always my unconditional support, the man willing to be behind me to back every one of my decisions. We had a dream wedding and an adorable son, Noah. My life at that moment was truly full. I had my career, an understanding husband, and a good son. After my father-in-law passed away prematurely, I brought my mother-in-law, Carol, to live with us so I could take better care of her. My mother-in-law was an incredibly understanding woman. She never interfered with my work. She always encouraged me, looked after me, and was proud of me. bragging about her successful daughter-in-law to everyone. She treated me better than if I were her own daughter. I thought I couldn't ask for anything more. My life passed peacefully and happily until a few months ago when Sophia appeared. That day, my mother-in-law unexpectedly arrived home with a young woman. She introduced her to us as Sophia, the daughter of a dear friend of hers from her hometown who had passed away. The girl had just started college in New York. Her family was struggling financially and she was alone in the city, with no one to lean on. I feel so sorry for her, Carol told me with a contrite voice. What do you think if we let her stay at home for a while, honey? The house is huge. It would be a good deed, and besides, she's very smart. She could help Noah with his studies. Seeing the young woman with her slender figure, her big, innocent eyes, and her simple clothes standing timidly at the door, I accepted without hesitation. I had also been through difficult times. I understood what it was like to feel lost in a strange city, and so Sophia became a member of our family as a guest and as Noah's tutor. She performed her role perfectly. She was polite, hardworking, and took care of Noah meticulously. Both my husband and I grew very fond of her. I didn't have the slightest suspicion. I saw her as a little sister, but now, after my son's words, I started connecting the dots. I remembered the times I came back late from work and found James and Sophia chatting animatedly in the living room. I remembered the strange looks they exchanged when they thought I wasn't noticing. I also remembered the times my mother-in-law, very casually, created opportunities for them to be alone. James, stay home and take Sophia to buy some books for Noah, will you? Eliza and I are going to the supermarket for a moment. Oh, Eliza has a work dinner tonight and will be back late. You two have dinner with Sophia. Don't wait for her. All those details that I previously considered normal signs of affection now appeared as the pieces of a well-orchestrated plot. A chill ran down my body. Could it be possible that the perfection I was living in was just a play? Could it be possible that my husband and my mother-in-law, the two people I trusted the most, were conspiring together to deceive me? A plan to uncover the truth began to form in my mind. I knew I had to act, but with the utmost caution. If this story seems intriguing and worth following, don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button, like, and share to give us more motivation. What will Eliza do to unmask the truth? And how terrible will the secret behind the relationship of her husband, her mother-in-law, and the young tutor be? See you in the next part. In the previous part, an innocent phrase from Noah planted a seed of doubt in my heart, Eliza's heart, which cracked the previously perfect picture of my family. But for you to understand the magnitude of that shock, allow me to repaint this supposed dream life I once had in more detail. It was an image any woman would envy, a completeness that I myself believed would last forever. My fashion company was growing nonstop, becoming a recognized brand not only in the US, but also with a presence in the international market. I was busy, under pressure, but I never felt alone because behind me there was always a man, James, my husband. Our love, after 7 years of marriage, hadn't faded. He maintained the habit of bringing me a glass of warm water whenever I worked late. He remembered the anniversary of the day we met and always surprised me with small romantic gestures. James was not only an attentive husband, but also a wonderful father. Every afternoon it was he who picked Noah up from school and played and read stories to him with infinite patience. The image of father and son together in our small garden was the best balm for my soul, erasing all the fatigue of a long day. Furthermore, he was my right-hand man in the company. As marketing director, he had developed successful campaigns with me that contributed enormously to the brand's growth. Everyone in the company admired us. They said we were the golden couple, a perfect combination of a cold, strategic mind and a warm, creative heart. I was immensely proud of him and our small family. And the piece that completed that perfection was my mother-in-law, Carol. If there was an award for Mother-in-Law of the Year, I'm sure Carol would win first prize. Since she moved in with us, she never interfered in my professional or personal life. She always said, Eliza's job is very stressful. As a family, we must make things easier for her so she can concentrate. She took better care of me than my own mother. Every morning, a warm breakfast awaited me on the table. Every night, a foot bath with aromatic herbs was ready for me. She never complained, never asked for anything. She simply took care of the whole family from the background. She bragged about me without disguise. Every time her friends came over, she showed me off, and this is my daughter-in-law. She's brilliant and talented. She built an empire all by herself. My James had the luck of 3 lifetimes marrying her. Those words, ladies and gentlemen, were worth more than any expensive gift. They made me feel loved, recognized, and gave me even more motivation to keep going. I considered her my own mother. I confided everything to her. And then when Sophia appeared, that perfect picture seemed to be adorned with a touch of kindness. Carol introduced her as the daughter of a dear friend of hers from her hometown who had passed away with a very precarious family situation. Seeing that first-year college student, small with timid eyes, I didn't hesitate to open the doors of my house to her. Sophia did not disappoint our trust. She presented herself as the model of innocence and gratitude. She took meticulous care of Noah, patiently taught him to read, and played with him. With the rest of the family, she was always respectful and helpful. She did the housework quietly, without anyone asking her to. I grew very fond of her, bought her new clothes, books, and treated her like a sister. I thought welcoming such a helpless girl would bring more blessings to my family. I was completely immersed in that complete happiness, in that perfect picture of which I was a part. I didn't realize that every brushstroke of that picture, the exemplary husband, the golden mother-in-law, the innocent tutor, were actually strokes of a big farce. Noah's phrase, "I saw Miss Sophia give Dad a kiss," was like a small stone thrown into a calm lake, creating ripples that revealed the hidden sludge at the bottom. After that night, I could no longer look at my family with the same eyes. I started to observe, to pay attention, and when doubt settles in the heart, even the most insignificant gesture becomes suspicious. I realized that the relationship between James and Sophia was not one of simple affection. There were strange glances, accidental touches of hands that lasted longer than necessary. When I was present, they maintained a prudent distance, but as soon as I turned my back, they looked for a way to get closer. And the director of that whole play was none other than my mother-in-law. Carol, my understanding mother-in-law, continuously created opportunities that couldn't be more opportune. "James, Eliza has to attend to some clients tonight. You have dinner with Sophia and Noah. I'm going out with my friends to dance." "Oh, Sophia, your computer is broken again. Let James take a look at it. He's a handyman." She always found the perfect excuse to leave them alone. Her staging was so subtle that if it weren't for my son's words, I would never have noticed. My heart ached with pain. It turned out that all the love and pride she professed for me were false. I decided to test them. To confirm my suspicions, I devised a detailed plan. I told my team of assistants, "Prepare an urgent business trip to San Francisco for me," with a schedule full of unpostponable meetings. Everything, from the plane tickets and hotel confirmation to the emails with the partners, had to look real. That night during dinner, I announced my trip. "I have to go to San Francisco for 3 days this weekend," I said, with a somewhat tired tone. "A partner requested an urgent last-minute meeting. It can't be postponed. It's such a sudden trip. Noah is in your care, Mom and Sophia." I glanced sideways at their reactions, and I saw it. I saw a very brief and quickly disguised flash of joy in the eyes of all 3. Carol rushed to say, "Oh, honey, don't worry about anything, and go easy. Noah has his grandma, his father, and Sophia to take care of him. Work comes first." James was also understanding. "Go easy, darling. Don't worry about us. Take good care of yourself on the trip, okay?" Sophia simply lowered her head, but I saw a slight smile forming on her lips. They had taken the bait, my trap was set. Now I just had to wait for their show to begin. What I didn't know was that the play I was about to witness not only contained sentimental betrayal, but also a cruel conspiracy, an abyss of human wickedness that I could never have imagined. I truly wonder, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to be quiet to maintain peace, or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion, because every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else. The day I went to the airport, my family staged a moving and perfect farewell. James hugged me tightly, giving me all kinds of recommendations, from taking care of myself to calling him every day. My mother-in-law put a small bottle of lavender oil in my purse for headaches on the plane. Sophia stood aside with tearful eyes. Come back soon, Miss Eliza. We will miss you and Noah. Watching their performance, I felt a chilling cold. I also played my part, kissing my husband and son, promising to bring many gifts. But as soon as the car left the gate, my smile disappeared, leaving only a steel determination. I arrived at JFK Airport in New York. I checked in as if it were real. I even took a picture of my boarding pass and uploaded it to my social media with the text, "Goodbye, New York. See you in 3 days." It was part of my plan to make them believe I had left, so they would take off their masks, so they would be comfortable. But instead of going through the security control, I discreetly left through another door. I took a taxi and went to a luxury hotel in the center of the city, not far from my house. I had to wait for the right moment when sleep and lack of vigilance would make them vulnerable. Sitting in the cold, luxurious hotel room, my heart was burning. I couldn't eat or sleep. Scenarios kept popping up in my mind. What if I was being paranoid? What if I was destroying my own happiness? But then the images of their furtive glances and Carol's excuse came back to my mind, dispelling any doubt. No, my instinct couldn't be wrong. I waited patiently, watching the clock hands advance. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, at 12 o'clock sharp, I got up, put on dark clothes, and left the hotel. I took a taxi back to my house. The neighborhood was silent, plunged into darkness. My house was also dark, with a deceptively peaceful appearance, but I knew that behind that calm lay a dirty truth. I used my own key to open the gate without making a sound. I tiptoed through the garden, my heart about to burst out of my chest. Every step on the dew-wet lawn felt incredibly heavy. The closer I got, the harder it was to breathe. I held my breath, inserted the key into the main lock, and turned it gently. The door opened to absolute silence, only broken by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room. I closed the door carefully and stood motionless in the darkness, listening, and then I heard it. From the second floor, from our bedroom, came muffled laughter and whispers. My heart tightened. I knew I was right. I climbed the marble stairs barefoot, step by step, as if stepping on broken glacis. The closer I got, the clearer the voices became. It was my husband's voice and that of another woman. The bedroom door was ajar. A thin line of light was projected into the dark hallway. I approached slowly, my heart pounding so hard that I feared they could hear it. I held my breath and peeked through the crack, and then the scene that struck my eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't just a betrayal, it was a horrible scene, a ruthless conspiracy, a humiliation so deep that I felt the blood freeze in my veins. In our very marriage bed, wearing the seductive red silk negligee that I myself had bought, was Sophia nestled in my husband's arms. They weren't sleeping, they were whispering. James's hand was stroking her hair. "Do you really love me?" I heard Sophia's cooing voice. "Of course, my love," James replied, kissing her on the forehead. "We just have to wait a little longer and you and I can be together without having to hide from that stupid wife of mine." That stupid wife of mine, the man who whispered words of love to me every night, was now calling me that. But the horror didn't end there. At that moment, my mother-in-law, Carol, came up from the kitchen with 2 glasses of warm milk on a tray. She showed no surprise or anger. On the contrary, she approached the nightstand, gave a glass to Sophia with infinite tenderness, and said, "Drink, honey, so you can gain strength and my grandson can grow up healthy and strong." Then she leaned in to tuck in her son and his lover and smiled. A smile of satisfaction like that of a director who has just completed a brilliant scene. I had to cover my mouth with my hands to keep from screaming. My whole body was shaking. My mind was spinning. The 3 people I had trusted the most in the world, my husband, my mother-in-law, whom I saw as a mother, and the little sister I had taken in, had conspired to put on a perfect play to deceive me and trample on my feelings. All my happiness, all my fulfillment was a farce. I was just a fool, a puppet in their show. The pain was no longer jealousy, but the collapse of an entire world. In that moment of horror, witnessing the rawest and dirtiest truth, I almost lost my mind. I wanted to go in, overturn that bed, scream, curse, expose the true faces of those 3 disgusting people. I wanted the whole world to know how they had treated me. But then my son, who was sleeping peacefully in the next room, brought me back. His rhythmic breathing, which I could hear through the crack in the door, was like a stream of cold water that put out the fire of my anger. I couldn't make a scene. I couldn't let my son witness such a terrible scene. I couldn't allow his childhood to be marked by the breakdown of adults. And my mind, accustomed to business crises, told me it wasn't the time to act impulsively. If I confronted them now, what would they do? They would deny it. James would say he was framed, Sophia would cry, saying she was forced, and Carol, with her talent for acting, would go back to playing the role of the suffering mother-in-law trying to mediate. I wouldn't achieve anything except a shouting match, a momentary satisfaction, and then they would be even more alert, better hiding their conspiracy. No, I needed more. I needed them to truly pay. I needed an undeniable final blow. The extreme pain transformed into a terrifying coldness. I backed away in silence. I left the house without making a sound and returned to the hotel like a sleepwalker. I didn't sleep all night sitting on the cold sofa, waiting for dawn. I didn't cry anymore. In my mind, a plan began to take shape. They had made me a spectator of their play. Now I would become the lead actress in mine. The next morning, I calculated the time perfectly. At 7 o'clock sharp, when I knew they would have already gotten up and erased all traces of the previous night, I took a taxi home. I walked in, dragging my suitcase, looking exhausted, as if I had just arrived from a long night flight. The three of them sitting at the breakfast table were stunned to see me. "Eliza, what are you doing here at this hour?" James stammered, panic and guilt written all over his face. "The partner had an unforeseen event and canceled the meeting at the last minute," I said in a hoarse voice. I had deliberately avoided drinking water all night. "I caught the first flight back. I didn't have time to warn you. I'm exhausted." Carol jumped up with a somewhat forced smile, but trying to look worried. "Oh, it's good that you're back. Are you tired? Go up and rest, honey. We'll take care of everything." Sophia kept her head down, not daring to look at me, with her hands clasped, perfectly playing her role as the shy girl from the countryside. I looked at the three of them, those great actors. I smiled to myself. My play had just begun. "No, it's nothing. I'll take a shower and come down to have breakfast with everyone. To be with my family," I said. And I dragged the suitcase upstairs directly toward the bedroom. I knew they were following my every step, holding their breath. I opened the door as naturally as possible. The room was impeccable. No trace of the previous night, the bed perfectly made. Sophia's cheap perfume had been replaced by the lemongrass scent that I always used. They were quick at erasing evidence. Half an hour later, I came out of the bathroom, put on comfortable house clothes, and went downstairs with a fresh expression, as if nothing had happened. My apparent ignorance completely relieved them. They believed their deception had worked, that I was still the same fool as always, and that arrogance gave me the time I needed to prepare for my final counterattack, a blow that would destroy their perfect farce. I became an actress, putting on the mask of innocence to secretly investigate and discover the whole truth behind their play. Life in the mansion returned to its apparent normality, but for me it had become a grand stage where every day I acted and observed the performance of others. I continued to be a loving wife, a devoted daughter-in-law, but when they weren't looking, at night, I transformed into another person, a cold and determined investigator. I decided to install hidden cameras. I needed proof. One in the bedroom wasn't enough. Their conspiracy went beyond simple infidelity. It must have had a greater purpose. To discover it, I needed a complete surveillance network. Taking advantage of their absences, I secretly installed ingeniously camouflaged micro cameras, one in a pen on James's desk, another in the mantel clock in the living room where they used to meet, and the most audacious one hidden in a picture frame in my mother-in-law's room itself. I needed to hear and see everything, but internal surveillance wasn't enough. I needed to know what they were doing outside. I contacted a prestigious private detective agency in New York, with whom I had already worked on business matters. I asked their best agents to follow the three of them, James, Carol, and especially Sophia. "I need to know everything," I told the team leader. "Their schedules, their meetings, their financial transactions, however small, and all in absolute secrecy." The two-pronged investigative, internal and external, was launched. Every day was mental torture. By day I smiled and said words of love to the person who was betraying me. By night, I faced alone the crude images and information that reached me. Soon, the first clues appeared, shattering the innocent image of the tutor Sophia. The detective's report revealed that she did not live like a humble student. When she left the house, she didn't go to college or the library, but to luxury houses, designer boutiques, and expensive restaurants. She drove high-end SUVs and spent money extravagantly. She didn't look like a student taken in out of charity, but a queen enjoying life. Her relationships were also complex. She frequently met with suspicious-looking men in discreet cafes. They were quick encounters just to exchange something. The story that she was an orphan and a friend of my mother-in-law was a complete lie. The detectives verified that her parents lived in her hometown and were simple farmers. At the same time, Carol's financial report showed irregularities. She, a retired teacher with a modest pension, had enormous expenses on her credit card. She had bought diamond jewelry and designer handbags valued at thousands of dollars. Where was that money coming from? Certainly not from James, whose finances I closely controlled. These clues, although inconclusive, painted a dark picture. Sophia was not as simple as she seemed, and a mysterious flow of money was reaching her and Carol. But where was it coming from, and what was its ultimate goal? The sentimental betrayal was only the tip of a much more sinister iceberg, and I knew that the submerged part was the truly terrifying one. I didn't have to wait long to discover it. The answer came to me one night in the most chilling way possible. That day, I told my family I had an important gala dinner and would be back very late. In reality, I stayed in my car, parked on a corner near the house, with my laptop on my lap, watching the house cameras live. I saw the three of them, after putting Noah to bed, meet in James's office, that room that I myself had designed for him, full of memories of our beginnings. Now it was the meeting room for a dark conspiracy. I activated the audio recording. The sound from the hidden camera in the pen was crisp. At first, they chatted about trivialities, but then Carol got to the point. This can't go on. We can't have Eliza living in this house. What if one day she discovers everything? Well, we'll get divorced, Mom, James replied in a somewhat tired voice. We'll drag things out, wait for Sophia to give birth, and then file the papers. Even if she doesn't want to, she'll have to agree to divorce us. Carol let out a laugh that, even through the speakers, chilled my blood. Do you think it's that easy? Do you think that bitch will leave empty-handed? She's a wolf, son. The company is hers. This house is hers. What would you get out of a divorce? A small part according to the law. It wouldn't even cover Sophia's whims. No, son. She paused and continued, lowering her voice with a poisonous tone. There's only one way, quick and clean. If she disappears, everything will pass to you as her legitimate husband, and then to my grandson, much cleaner than a messy divorce with lawsuits and complications. I listened and felt my heart stop. Disappears. She was talking about my death. A mother-in-law planning her daughter-in-law's murder with the same naturalness as talking about going to the market. Mom, what are you saying? James's voice trembled. What are you planning to do? I won't do anything, Carol said, but accidents happen all the time, don't they? And then Sophia, the girl with the innocent appearance, spoke. Her voice was sweet, but every word was pure venom. Your mom is right, honey. Eliza is too smart and strong. With a simple divorce, she would never leave us alone. She would never allow my son to inherit anything. She paused and proposed an idea of unsurpassed cruelty. I've heard Eliza likes to drive through the mountains on weekends to relax. If her car brakes failed on a lonely mountain pass, no one would suspect. It would just be a regrettable accident. My body went cold. I couldn't breathe. Not only were they deceiving me, they were planning my murder. They were discussing my death in detail and in cold blood. But what broke me was my husband's reaction. James remained silent for a long time. For an instant, I had a little hope that he would object, that he would stop that insane plan, that he still had an ounce of humanity left. But no. After the silence, he spoke. His voice trembled a little, but not from fear, but from calculation. But is it safe? What if we get caught? Sophia rushed to charm him. If we do it carefully, no one will know. I have a contact who can do it very cleanly. I just need your approval, my love. Don't you want me and our son? Carol finished it off. That's it, son. You have to be decisive. Do you want to live in her shadow all your life? Or do you want to be the owner of your destiny and have your son be able to hold his head high? His mother's incitement, his lover's pleas, and perhaps his own accumulated envy won the battle. I heard James take a deep breath and say the phrase that closed the last door of hope in me, the phrase that turned him from a traitor into a monster. Okay, but it has to look like a real accident. At that moment, I stopped feeling either pain or fear, just an infinite void. The perfect picture had been shattered, revealing the sharp fragments of a murderous plot. Tell me whether you have parents, grandparents, or older family members who deserve more respect than they currently receive from their families. Alternatively, tell me if you yourself are going through a situation in which you're not appreciated as much as you truly deserve. I felt my legs weaken upon hearing such a terrifying conspiracy. The three people I had trusted the most, my husband, my mother-in-law, and the tutor I had taken in, were not only betraying me, but also planning my cold-blooded murder to keep the assets that I'd worked so hard to build. James's final phrase, okay, but it has to look like a real accident, resonated in my head, sharp as a blade, cutting the last thread of affection and hope I still had. Sitting motionless in my car on that dark corner, I was frozen, my back soaked in sweat. For the first time in my life, I felt a real fear, a fear that came from the closest people. This was no longer infidelity or a dispute over money. It was a plot to murder me. My life was in danger. For a moment, I wanted to start the car and flee, go to the police. But my mind, accustomed to extreme situations, stopped me. If I acted now, they would deny it. They would say it was a heated discussion, that they were just talking. The recording was important evidence, but it only proved the intention, not the criminal act. To unmask them undeniably so that the law would punish them as they deserved, I needed more. I needed proof of the action. I needed to catch them red-handed. An audacious and extremely dangerous decision formed in my mind. I would not flee. I would face them. I would become the bait to draw the beast out of its lair. The first thing I did that very night was save the recording in multiple secure locations, an encrypted cloud, a secret email, and a tiny USB that I always carried with me. I knew that video was my life insurance, my only weapon. If something happened to me, it would automatically be sent to my lawyer and the police. Once the evidence was secured, I began the next act of my play. The next morning, I continued to smile, greet them, and prepare breakfast. But inside, I was no longer the hurt Eliza, but a cold warrior, calculating every move in a life-or-death game. Looking at their smiling and false faces filled me with infinite disgust. James would ask me with fake concern if I was tired. Carol would bring me broth to replenish my strength. Sophia would greet me with her innocent gaze. They acted wonderfully. They were treating me like a dead woman, like a lamb awaiting sacrifice, but they didn't know that this lamb had turned into a wolf in a single night. I knew they needed the perfect opportunity to execute their accident, and I was going to give it to them. A few days later, during dinner, I casually commented, I feel like some fresh air this weekend. I think I'll go with my friend Jennifer to a resort in the Adirondack Mountains. I'll drive myself for a couple of days. I need to relax and clear my head. I saw the sparkle in Carol's eyes, the fleeting smile of Sophia, and James's hand stopping halfway to his mouth. They had taken the bait. My lure was cast. James even feigned concern. Will you be okay driving alone? Do you want me to come with you? No, darling, I kindly refused. Stay with Mom and the boy. Besides, Jennifer is going through a tough time and we need some privacy. I haven't driven a long distance in a while. I'm looking forward to it. My plan was in motion, the fateful weekend trip. I knew they would act sooner, and my team of detectives and I were ready to record everything. The following days, the atmosphere at home became strange. Apparently, everything was normal, but I felt an underlying tension. They treated me with exaggerated kindness, trying to lull me before the final blow. The more they acted, the more disgusted I was. Meanwhile, my detectives worked tirelessly. They informed me that Sophia had secretly met with a suspicious-looking man at a mechanic's shop in the outskirts. They exchanged a small bag. I knew it was the tool for their plan. Friday night arrived, the eve of my trip. I said I was going to bed early to be well rested, but in reality, I locked myself in my office with my eyes glued to the screens that displayed the images from the 4 security cameras I had installed in the garage. One pointed directly at my car, another covered the whole space, one at the entrance, and a micro camera under my own car, pointing directly at the brake system. Time passed slowly. 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. The house was silent. I started to get nervous. What if they had noticed something? At 1 a.m., when sleep was starting to overcome me, the door connecting the house to the garage stealthily opened. My heart stopped. Two figures crept in, James and an unknown man with a baseball cap covering his face. From the detective's photos, I knew it was the same man Sophia had met with. They didn't turn on the light. They only used a mobile phone flashlight. James gestured for the man to approach my car. He, my husband, the man who swore to protect me, was now watching while another sabotaged my vehicle to kill me. I had to cover my mouth to keep from sobbing. Even though I was prepared, witnessing it was an indescribable pain. The man was a professional. He quickly got under the car. The lower camera recorded everything. I clearly saw how he used a special tool to make a small cut in the left front brake line. He didn't cut it completely, just enough for the brake fluid to slowly leak out. A diabolical plan. In the city, I wouldn't notice anything, but descending a mountain pass, the brakes would suddenly fail. A very natural accident. Once finished, the man came out and signaled to James. My husband took out a wad of dollars and handed it to him. The transaction was complete. They left the garage thinking their plan was perfect, without knowing that their entire criminal act had been recorded with impeccable clarity. I stayed there in front of the monitor, frozen. I had the entire video of the conspiracy and the video of the execution. Enough evidence to bring all three to justice. Their play was over. It was time for the curtain of justice to rise. I picked up the phone and sent all the videos to my lawyer, Mr. Peterson, with a simple message. Everything is ready. We act tomorrow. That night I didn't sleep. I watched the videos over and over again, not to wallow in pain, but to burn into my mind the true faces of those I had loved with all my heart. My heart was cold. I felt neither pain nor hatred, only a cold and steely determination. Saturday dawned, the day that, according to their plans, would be the last of my life. But for me, it was the dawn of justice. Early in the morning, I sent all the evidence to my lawyer and contacted the chief inspector of the NYPD, with whom we were already coordinated. A meticulous and discreet plan for an in flagrante arrest was drawn up. Plainclothes officers surrounded the mansion. I knew this was the last move, and I couldn't afford any mistakes. After making sure my son was safe with my most trusted employee, I began my final performance. I dressed in a designer sports outfit, energetic and comfortable. I put on light makeup and tied up my hair, trying to radiate joy. I went down to the living room dragging a small suitcase. The three of them, James, Carol, and Sophia, were already there with radiant smiles, ready to say goodbye to me. Seeing me, they staged a scene of incredibly false concern. "What an early bird," James said, taking my suitcase with nauseating gallantry. "Have you had breakfast? Mom made the tomato toast you like so much." "Yes, I've already eaten. I want to leave early to beat the heat," I replied with the same sweetness, although inside I felt infinite disgust. Carol took my hand with the expression of a mother-in-law who adores her daughter-in-law. "Drive carefully, honey. Slowly. Don't rush. Especially when descending the mountain pass. Call us when you arrive so we can be at ease." She even emphasized descending the mountain pass as a final curse. Sophia stood aside with her innocent gaze and her quiet voice. "Have a great time, Ms. Eliza. We will miss you and Noah." Ladies and gentlemen, witnessing that scene, I no longer felt anything. They were saying goodbye to me toward death with words of love. They eagerly awaited the news of a regrettable accident. They didn't know that these would be their last words, their last performance before the curtain of justice fell. I smiled at them one last time, a smile that must have been terrifying. "Yes, take good care of yourselves. I'm leaving, but I'll be back soon." I walked toward the garage with them following me. They wanted to make sure their plan didn't fail. The garage was silent. My white sports car shone under the light. No one would say it was a death trap. I approached the car. James, solicitous, opened the door for me in a final act of the perfect husband. "Careful, darling," he whispered in my ear. A gesture that used to seem romantic now gave me chills. I nodded, about to sit down, my heart beating a little faster. I knew it was the moment. Just as my hand touched the car door, just as I was about to get in, a firm voice broke the silence. "Stop, NYPD!" The automatic garage door lifted abruptly, flooding the space with light, and dozens of uniformed officers who rushed in like an exhalation. From the other parked cars, my lawyer and his team came out. All exits were blocked. James Garcia, Carol Roberts, Sophia Miller, the voice of an inspector thundered, his voice echoing in the garage. You are under arrest for conspiracy and attempted murder. The three of them froze, pure terror on their faces. All their smiles and masks disappeared, leaving only absolute panic. What is this? Carol stammered, her face white as paper. Who are you? It's a mistake. My daughter-in-law was going on a trip. We were just saying goodbye. There is no mistake, ma'am, said Mr. Peterson, my lawyer, approaching and showing a tablet. On the screen, the video of James and the mechanic sabotaging my car the night before was playing silently. Your entire criminal act has been recorded, and as for that trip, it never existed. Seeing the video, James seemed to lose all strength. He collapsed to his knees, trembling and muttering, "No, it can't be." Sophia let out a high-pitched scream with wide eyes and fainted. Only Carol, in her desperation, tried to fight, shouting like a wild animal, "It's a trap! It's her, Eliza! She set up everything to destroy my family." She pointed her finger at me, but no one believed her anymore. Her farce had been dismantled in the most unexpected and humiliating way. Cold handcuffs closed on their wrists, ending the terrifying play they themselves had directed. In the police station, the atmosphere was oppressive, a marked contrast to the false luxury of my mansion. The three were interrogated in separate rooms. I, as the victim and main witness, spent hours with the investigators, providing all the evidence I had gathered. When they were brought together for the first confrontation, their true personalities were revealed. Carol, even after seeing the video, clung to her denial and began her favorite game, blaming others. "I don't know anything," she shouted with tears in her eyes. "That video is a setup. Eliza trapped us, and as for the conversation, I was just joking. I was angry. Who doesn't say things they don't mean?" Then she pointed to Sophia. "It was her. That harpy seduced my son. She put those ideas in his head to steal our money. My son is a victim." Sophia, seeing herself accused, exploded. The shyness and innocence were gone. "She's lying," she screamed, crying with rage. "It was you who looked for me. You promised me a life of luxury if I helped you get rid of Eliza. Everything was your idea, even the accident. You gave me the money to pay the mechanic." She turned to James, pleading, "Honey, say something. Tell them you loved me too, right?" And James, the center of all the malice, broke down. He didn't deny or blame anyone. With his head bowed, he confessed everything between sobs. He admitted his affair, his insecurities, his envy of my success, and the most painful thing. He admitted that it was his mother, Carol, who constantly poisoned his mind, telling him that I despised him, that I was a threat. "She told me that if Eliza disappeared, everything would be mine," he said in a broken voice. "That it was the only way to be a real man and not live in my wife's shadow. She planned everything, and I was too cowardly to refuse." His confession made it clear. Carol was the mastermind, the brain behind everything. It wasn't just about money, it was about power, about regaining control over her son. Her envy had turned her into a monster. The scene of mutual accusations and the late confession painted the tragic portrait of a family destroyed by greed, selfishness, and weakness. Their play was over, but the tragedy of their lives was just beginning. James's desperate confession pointed directly to the true mastermind, his mother. Carol, unmasked by her own son and confronted with undeniable evidence, finally broke down. Sitting in the interrogation chair, she was no longer an elegant lady or an understanding mother-in-law, just a defeated old woman. Her confession was not one of repentance, but a venomous justification of her actions. She admitted that from the first day she met me, although she praised me on the outside, on the inside she hated me, she envied me, envied my success, my strength. Because her son, her only pride, lacked all of that. "She was too brilliant," she said in a monotone voice. "She made my son look weak next to her. The man is supposed to be the pillar, but in that house, it was the other way around. Every time I heard someone praise Eliza's husband, I felt a stab." She had to be James's woman. She recounted her plan. "From the beginning, she tried to wear me down with criticism and pressure. hoping I would give up. Seeing that it wasn't working, she looked for a new weapon. I needed a docile daughter-in-law, she confessed, one who knew how to stand behind her husband, who would give me a grandson and whom I could control, not a queen who thinks she's the center of the universe. She found Sophia. She saw her ambition behind her innocent facade and promised her a life of luxury. She orchestrated the entire farce, directing Sophia's every move, from gaining my trust to seducing James. She even admitted to instigating small thefts at home to create chaos and exhaust me. Regarding the murder plot, she no longer denied it. Her voice turned icy. A divorce was complicated. Eliza is too smart. The best solution was for her to disappear naturally. An accident would fix everything. The company, the assets, everything would be for James. And then for my grandson. It was a perfect plan. She even confessed how she manipulated her son, inventing that I was cheating on him and that I was planning to kick him out of the company. Her confession revealed everything. The mind behind the conspiracy was hers, motivated by envy and the wounded ego of seeing her son surpassed by his wife. She was willing to kill just to regain a false prestige. The confession closed the investigation, but opened another storm: public opinion. The news leaked and exploded in the media. The story had all the ingredients for a scandal: love, betrayal, money, and attempted murder. Sensational headlines filled newspapers and news portals, but along with the outrage and support, conspiracy theories arose. Some said I couldn't be that good, that where there's smoke, there's fire. Others speculated that I myself had staged everything to get rid of my husband. These rumors began to affect my company. I knew I had to act, not with a fight on social media, but with an official and forceful counterattack. I organized a press conference. I did not appear as a crying victim, but in a white suit, serene and strong. I wanted the world to see that, despite the storm, I was still standing. I began by thanking the police and the public. Then I said, I'm here not to judge, as that will be handled by the law, but to tell the truth as a wife, mother, and woman who placed her trust in the wrong place. My lawyer, Mr. Peterson, presented the key evidence: a fragment of the audio where they planned the accident, the expert report confirming the brake sabotage, and short videos of James and Sophia's intimacy in my own bed. We didn't show everything, just enough to destroy their lies and silence any rumor. The press room fell silent. Journalists went from skepticism to shock and outrage. The public image of my perfect family shattered, revealing the face of greed and malice. The clear and just truth had finally come to light. After the shocking press conference, public opinion turned in my favor. Social pressure ensured that the case would be judged with maximum severity. And then the day of the trial arrived, the day that would not only sentence their crimes, but also my marriage and years of suffering. The courtroom was packed. I, sitting in the victim's bench next to my lawyer, wore a black suit with a firm gaze. In the dock were they, Carol with graying hair and a lost look, Sophia, consumed and downcast, and James, he was staring at me, his eyes full of a repentance that came too late. The prosecutor read the charges, each word a hammer blow, in the silence of the room. When the videos were projected as evidence, the indignation was palpable. The defense could barely articulate a word in the face of the evidence. In their turn for a final word, Carol and Sophia pleaded for clemency through tears, but it was James's statement that surprised me. He did not ask for clemency for himself. He stood up, turned toward me, and with a deep bow said, "Your Honor, I have no excuses for my crime. I have been a terrible husband, an unworthy father, and a coward. I accept any punishment. My only request is not for this court, but for my wife, Eliza. I know I have no right, but I beg you, do not erase my image completely from our son's life. When he grows up, please tell him he had a father who made an unforgivable mistake, but who always loved him. Please let him know about me, even if it's through photos. It is the only thing, the last thing I dare to ask." His words left me cold. He wasn't asking for himself, but for our son. I faced a terrible choice. A part of me wanted to erase all trace of them from our lives, to protect Noah with a wall of silence. But another part wondered if that was the best for him. Should I lie to him, saying his father had died, or tell him the devastating truth? What would hurt him more in the long run? After the deliberation, the judge delivered the sentence. They received severe and just sentences. Carol, as the mastermind, received the highest penalty. James and Sophia would pay for their crime with years of their lives behind bars. After the trial, I asked to see James one last time. He entered the visitation room handcuffed, in the inmate uniform. He didn't dare to look at me. "I have heard your request," I told him calmly. "The divorce is final. It's over. But regarding our son, I have made a decision." He looked up, expectant. "I will not lie to him or erase your existence. When he is old enough to understand, I will tell him the whole truth. The truth about a father who loved him very much, but who also made a terrible mistake. I will teach him that we can all make mistakes and that the important thing is to take responsibility and repent. His future, whether he accepts you or not, then will depend on your true repentance in the coming years. Try to be a good person, not for me, but for him." I got up and left without looking back. I heard him shouting my name and then I burst into tears. I didn't give him my forgiveness, but I gave him a reason to change. And by doing so, I also freed myself. My son's life and mine began a new page. I stopped being a strong, solitary woman. I spent more time with Noah, teaching him not with resentment, but with fables about truth, forgiveness, and the importance of defending oneself from evil. My company continued to prosper, but I learned to balance, to delegate, and to enjoy the small things I had forgotten. I started dancing, arranging flowers, rediscovering joy beyond financial statements. Dear friends, my story ends here. I tell it not to boast, but to share the lessons I learned at a very high price. First, be wary of what is too perfect. Life is not perfect. Sometimes perfection is just a well-staged farce. Never ignore your intuition. It is often your best guardian, detecting danger that reason has not yet seen. Second, when you discover betrayal, be brave and decisive. Do not yield or expect them to change. With the wicked, forgiveness is complicity, and silence is an opportunity for them to do more harm. Protecting yourself sometimes requires being ruthless. It is not malice, it is legitimate self-defense. And finally, believe in the power of rebirth. True happiness is not an impeccable image from the start. It is the peace that is found after having gone through the storm. Do not fear your scars, they are proof of your strength. Do not let the past define you. Turn it into a lesson to build a brighter future. The journey of Eliza, the woman we have followed, has come to an end, but the lessons she leaves resonate deeply. Her story is a warning about the dangerous facade of perfection and the importance of listening to our inner voice. It reminds us that not all that glitters is gold, and that our intuition is an early warning system that we must never ignore. It also teaches us about the nature of evil, about the wolves in sheep's clothing who live among us. The villains of this story were not obvious monsters, but people who wore masks of kindness: the perfect mother-in-law, the exemplary husband, the innocent tutor. They used Eliza's trust as a weapon against her. The lesson is bitter. Not everyone who treats you well wishes you well. To recognize them, we must observe their actions when they think no one is watching and how they react when their interests are threatened. And when the mask falls, Eliza's story teaches us to transform from victims into strategists. Instead of succumbing to pain, she turned her tears into fuel for her intellect. She acted with a plan, not impulsively. It teaches us that to win a battle, intelligence is more powerful than anger. Justice does not come to those who only cry, but to those who fight for it with cunning. Finally, her decision at the trial is a profound lesson about motherhood. By choosing to tell her son the difficult truth, she gave him the best possible protection. Not a false and perfect world, but the tools to face an imperfect world with courage and discernment. Dear friends, everyone's life is a book. There will be luminous chapters and dark ones. May this story serve as a light to navigate the shadows. Always remember, your kindness is a gift. Do not give it to those who do not deserve it. Your boundaries are your honor. Do not let anyone trample them. And your heart, though wounded, must never be hardened by hatred. Always maintain a warm heart, a cold mind, and a straight backbone. Only then can you weather any storm and find your own haven of peace. Thank you for joining us in this reflection.